How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And to my right is Scott Dunbier, who makes a return here to talk about the big news that came out yesterday. I've been wanting to talk to you since last year, and we had to move things around. You told me to wait on the announcement, and here we are. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you, pal?
I'm doing okay, and I'm very happy for you. Saw the news break yesterday about Skybound and Act 4. I think that's wonderful, and all these new additions, and that's what we are here to talk about. And you have been the idea of Act 4 has been around in your brain for a while, and now it's going to be teaming up with Skybound. So how exactly does that team up work, first of all?
After I left my previous employer and I started my new company last May, I had to look and figure out how to distribute my books and who to partner with. I talked to a number of different people and places. I spoke to Diamond, I spoke to PRH, I spoke to Abrams. But at the end of the day, the people at Skybound were great. I was talking with Image, and then that evolved into going and talking with the people at Skybound, and we made it happen. They've been fantastic the entire way through, and I'm honestly very excited about getting books out. It's been too long since I've had my last book out.
So with Skybound, it's still Act 4. So it is Scott Dunbier working on several type of books, including things that we're very familiar with, like the artist editions, and of course these new Connoisseur editions, which I do want to talk about and bring up because I'm very excited about these things coming. And then they hinted at some other things coming in the future as well, which has me very, very intrigued. And I know a lot of my viewers, because I've already been, when they found out that you were going to be on the show, they started asking me questions, and I was like, hey, let's actually I'll ask Scott when he's on tomorrow, because I'm also curious about all these things. Okay. So when we had talked about how you were going to continue doing the big artist editions. And in case you're not familiar with these books, they are big. I don't have one hand me. Of course, I don't have one handed me around me. They're big
bookshelf
size of the actual art that the artists use. And Scott has the opportunity to go around different places and scan these wonderful pages of original art, and then give us these wonderful artist editions that he's been a big part of for years. And over the years, we've had several artists. Oh my gosh, the Paul Smith one. I think the Batman one that you did, the David Mazzucchelli Batman Year One last year at IDW, that's a masterpiece, man. Just how big it is and how beautiful it is.
Thank
McFarlane, Jim Lee. You have worked with so many different artists. Now, with the new Act 4 and Skybound imprint, are you still going to be doing those sorts of books?
I will be, and the first one will be coming out in September, and it is a Jim Aparo artist edition of his Batman and Spectre work. It'll be 192 pages, maybe even a little bit more, but tons and tons of beautiful Jim Aparo stuff, all vintage Jim Aparo stuff.
And with the Jim Aparo, it's the DC Classics. I've seen the cover. It's still artist edition, right? So you are still able to carry over the name artist edition over there?
I am. I came to an agreement with IDW, and I now have the trademark of artist editions, and they will be able to use it also under license from me.
Oh, interesting. Now, Aparo was my Batman artist growing up when I was a kid. I love his artwork. So I'm very excited about that one. I know in the past when I had interviewed you, we had talked about the possibility of other books coming back to print. So how does that work now that like let's just use for example the John Burns X-Men Artist Edition that was printed at IDW. If that book goes out of print, is it still IDW that can print it as long as like licensing the Artist Edition through you? Is that the way it works?
The way it works with all artist editions is they're under contract for a limited amount of time. So, for instance, with the John Burns X-Men Artist Edition, that one would need to be under a new contract with Marvel. So, at some point, either IDW will want to do another edition of that, or I might. It depends. It's purely Marvel's choice.
Hmm. So then does IDW have, like, I guess what I call the first dibs? Like, okay, we get the chance to ask Marvel if we can renew the contract, or is it just like contract's up, anybody can go and ask, or because it's an artist edition, you have the first dibs at that?
IDW has a contract currently in place with Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
They have a number of books that are planned. They're still doing some reprints of books that I did, like David Mazzucchelli's Daredevil Born Again is coming out later this year.
Yeah.
Things. It's really, it really depends on who Marvel would like to go with. I mean, I don't know what the plans are at IDW. They might not have any interest in doing some of those books either.
Because I don't have you there anymore, Scott.
Well, it's a lot easier to do a reprint.
That is true. You've already done all the heavy lifting. So let's talk about some of these artist editions. We know about the Jim Aparo one that you've talked about, and it is on your website for anybody that's wondering. It is act4publishing.com, and I assume Skybound will put up some kind of marketing thing with it, just like IDW would. But what other artist editions can you tell us about that you're working on or you're going to see in the future?
Sure. There are a number of artist editions that are close to being signed as contracts that I can't really speak about. One that I haven't announced yet, but it's a signed deal. I'll be doing an Al Williamson artist edition of his X9 Corrigan strips that he did back in the 60s and 70s, which, I'm a big Al Williamson fan, so this is a big get for me.
I always like to ask, how far did you have to travel to get a lot of that original art?
Most of the art in that book is in one place, and I'll be going in June to scan it all.
Okay. So after Al Williamson, is there something maybe with, I know you got the DC book with Jim Aparo, but what about like maybe something with Marvel later on?
I would not be surprised at all to see some Marvel artist editions down the line. I have a really good relationship with the folks at Marvel. Mm-hmm. In particular, my friend Sven Larson, who's in charge of that whole thing. We're actively talking about it. So fingers crossed, everything will be announced in the next couple of months.
Love it. Love hearing that. Okay. Next couple of months. So it sounds like something's in the works, huh?
Well, we're talking.
And talking is a good start. I love it. Okay. Now, what I'm curious about is this Connoisseur editions. You've hinted at these. I can't remember if it was on the air or we were talking about these collections. But there are two, at least. Let's talk about two that I know are on the website and you've talked about. One of them being the Ragnarok Connoisseur edition, and the other one being the Spirit Connoisseur edition. Can you tell us what the Connoisseur editions are?
Sure. A Connoisseur edition is First, to be honest, I was looking for the most pretentious name I could, and Connoisseur Edition fit that. But it's something. It's an edition that makes it a bit special. I mean, it basically mirrors the Darwin Cook Parker Martini editions that I did. So there'll be oversized hardcovers in slipcases. They'll measure approximately 9.5 by 13 inches. So they'll be nice big books. And they will be all of Darwin. It will include all of Darwin Cook's spirit work, including every issue that he did, all the covers, the Batman Spirit crossover is going to be.
Sorry, I got excited. I mapped that. So that's one of my most wanted books. So when I heard about that, I was like, that's awesome. So you know what? These books are worth sharing. So I'm going to get a copy of the Spirit book and the size and compare it to an Absolute edition so people can know. I'm going to grab one of these artist editions too. So Scott, you do your thing and keep telling us about this book.
All right. It'll be coming out in October. And, Darwin was a good friend of mine and a tremendous artist. So to be able to expand his legacy, because this really is one of the most important books that he did, the Parker books, the New Frontier material, his work on Catwoman, it's all just wonderful, wonderful work, and it deserves to be in a great format and to be in perpetuity in print.
I think this is one of my favorite releases, and this is the Martini edition of Parker. So this is I'm gonna highlight myself really quick so people are aware what it looks like. So it's this size right here. It's a beautiful slipcase. It comes like inside of this beautiful slipcase. This is the book compared to a DC Absolute edition. Get it away from the light here. So it's a little bit bigger, a little taller, a little longer than this. This book is top shelf material. It will not fit in your K-Lax. I will say that. About this book. So will the dimensions be similar to this?
Yes, they will be similar to that. The idea is that you can put it on your bookshelf next to, you can put the Spirit book next to the Martini editions, and they will fit together in sync.
Beautiful. Now the dimensions of that work with the Spirit. What about Ragnarok?
Yeah, I mean it's all proportionate to the size of the artwork. So we'll be doing a Ragnarok Connoisseur edition also at some point. We have some, Walter Simonson and I have some other plans for Ragnarok before we do that book. Mm-hmm. And we'll be talking about that sometime in the next few months as well.
Okay, so I noticed that there are two,
and I love Walter. I'm all over doing work with Walter. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say there are two books. There's the Walter Simonson's Ragnarok in the Realm of the Ice Giants Series 4, and then Walter Simonson's Ragnarok, the Connoisseur edition. What is collected in the Connoisseur edition of Walter Simonson's book? And it will be, does it come with a slipcase? I know people are asking about that already, I'm sure.
Yes, it'll come with a slipcase.
Connoisseur indeed.
The Connoisseur edition will be the first 18 issues of Ragnarok, which are the first 3 minutes.
Oh, and those books are out of print, by the way, for people that are trying to get those hardcovers.
They are.
Awesome. Okay. You mentioned a little bit of something that you and Walter are working on. Is it Ragnarok related, or is it something else?
It is.
It is both Ragnarok related or something else?
I know, it is Ragnarok related. Sorry.
Okay. Well played. Okay, and then for people that are just now joining, I wanted to hold up an artist edition. This is one of the latest ones that got published at, again, IDW. Let me just show you how big this book is. This is the beautiful Paul Smith X-Men Artist Edition. And this is even bigger than the, of course, Connoisseur editions that we are talking about, because these are true to the actual art pages that the artists were using. So that is exciting. Those are not artist editions. Those are legit the first 18 issues of
the color comics. Yeah.
Okay. So with you saying the first 18 issues, does that mean there might be more Ragnarok coming?
We are definitely doing more Ragnarok.
Now that's what I wanted to hear. Yes, that's awesome. Let me just highlight some of this. This is all super exciting. Congrats on the new venture, Scott. Huge fan of my artist editions and looking forward to the Connoisseur editions. And I knew somebody would be asking about slipcase. Yes. Sometimes you do some slipcases, don't you, for artist editions? I think they were limited, weren't they, to the IDW shop? Or was it just different covers that you all did?
I did do some in slipcases. The David Mazzucchelli's Batman Year One, we did a slipcase on the limited edition, signed and numbered. We also did a slipcase on David Mazzucchelli Daredevil Born Again for the limited edition. We also did a slipcase on a couple of others. There was a Bone artist edition with Jeff Smith. There was a Sergio Aragonés artist edition that had a slipcase, and Chris Somney's Daredevil.
Yo, Scott, you're friends with Sam Keith. Any chance we can see you doing something with reprinting the Max? Like, oh my gosh. You have no idea, Adam, and I'm sure Scott knows this. IDW was going to come out with a big collection of all of the Max in one book, and they never did. It got I think the project got canceled, or I don't know. Something must have happened.
Well, Sam is one of my closest and oldest friends. One of my kids is named after him, and I always want to do stuff with Sam. He is currently pulled back a bit from comics, but I got an email from him a few weeks ago, and hopefully I'll catch up with him again, and hopefully I'll be able to talk him into doing some work. For right now, no plans to do anything with Sam, unfortunately, but I hope to.
Can always bring up the fact that you didn't name your kid after him.
He knows that.
And we definitely need more Max. Top shelf material of positively top shelf material. Excellent work, Scott.
Thank you.
Lots of praise for your stuff. Ooh, a New Frontier Artist Edition. Possible.
Well,
that is DC, right?
There already is one. Oh, an artist edition. I'm sorry. I thought you meant yeah. I'm very close with Darwin's wife, Marcia, and it's certainly something that we've talked about.
It's got to be difficult to pick and choose too, right? It's like you have so many people that you know and so many people that you worked with, and it's like there's one you, and you do have people that help you, but there's only one of you. You can't do it all. So it's got to be hard to pick and choose. Like, what of Darwin do you put into an artist edition? So I'm so glad to hear that you're doing a Connoisseur edition of the Spirit. That's wonderful.
Yeah. The other thing is, you have to be able to locate the original art. So Darwin did keep the first issue of New Frontier, but the rest of them were all sold.
Oh, wow. So you got a whole full issue, huh? And then it would be about finding the rest of them, which can be a little daunting.
Yeah, I'd need to find another 100 pages or so. But it also wouldn't have to be limited to New Frontier. I mean, Darwin did so many great covers of classic DC heroes,
Oh my Gosh, yeah. There's a Batman cover, there's a Teen Titan cover that I love. The landscape covers that he was doing.
Those are great. He did a whole series. Yeah.
I love those. Yeah. And there's so many you can choose from. What is the process like when working with a printer? Do they send you test books before selecting them? Do you visit their site?
I do not visit their site. The printers that I work with are in either Korea or China. And, before, if this is, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but if you're talking about approving a book, before I approve it to bind, I actually get the finished printed books that are not bound. And then I go through and make sure they're okay. That's the sort of last line of defense. And then I approve to print from that. And that's called an FNG.
And it's something, and it's very precise what you have to do with the paper stock too. It can't just be printed on any type of paper.
Yeah, the goal is to mimic the original art. So the paper isn't standard glossy paper that you would see in a comic book. The paper is a thicker stock with, as Scott Williams would say, that has some tooth to it. So it's closer to what an artboard looks like and feels like.
Okay. I wish the DC made a poster out of Cook Teen Titan covers. It was beautiful. Hey, what's up, Taylor? How are you, brother? Do you own any of the artist editions lines from any other companies like Images Vault Editions or Graffiti Designs Gallery Editions? What are your thoughts on their work?
I do. I have a bunch of them. I actually recently got the Graffiti Designs Brian Boland book, which is lovely.
Yeah.
I also have a couple of books from Craig Russell's company. I have 2 Apex editions of Brian Boland's work. Those are very nice. So, yeah, I have a bunch. Oh, and I also have the Battlestar Galactica by Walter Simonson. Oh, and the Alien by Walter Simonson.
And well, now that you're at Skybound, they're the ones that help put out the I'm sorry, you and Skybound are working together, but they're the ones that put out the Savage Dragon Vault Edition, which is a lot of Eric Larson's original work. So is that something that they're interested in doing and working with you? And I know that there's like there's a Youngblood one that they're doing, a Vault Edition too.
Yeah, those aren't with, I don't think, with Skybound. But
okay. Those are just straight Image?
I believe so. I can't tell you for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious about how much of that they can do. Oh my gosh, McFarlane's Spawn. That would be awesome. Which I'm sure there are a lot of things that in our last interview we talked about, like things that you've always wanted to do and unfortunately didn't work out. Was it Katsuhiro Otomo, or was there another Japanese artist that you wanted to do?
I really wanted to do an Akira book.
God bless
you. it just didn't work out yet. I'm always positive, so I'm always hoping to do that. It's something that I've been talking about in the last few months. Nothing has happened at all yet, but fingers crossed. Who knows? And then, I'd like to do some European stuff. I'd love to see a Hergé book or a Mobius book, but so far no luck on either of those. But maybe, we'll see.
Oh my gosh, dude. You had me at both of those creators, but Mobius, or even Jimenez, a lot of the stuff he did for Meadow Hornet and all the companies over there in Europe, man,
brilliant stuff.
Ooh. Yeah. Now you've got 2000 AD Rebellion. They're doing their own Apex editions. The bug, man, everybody's caught this original art bug, dude. And they sold out immediately, like pre-orders. They were gone. It was the Brian Boland Judge Dredd. Yeah,
that is a great book.
Brian Boland's Judge. Yeah, I missed that on that one. Here's an idea: an oversized poster of Cook's DC. I'm sure every company right now is worried about this, but you're afraid of the tariffs when they get implemented. Every company.
You know, I'm certainly concerned about it. You know, I mean, 10% is what is currently on the table, and you know that's not an insurmountable number. It's not something that's good for me, but you know, it's certainly not going to stop me from doing any books. But you know, hopefully, everything will be resolved in a positive way, and we won't have, you know, nobody will have to worry about it. I mean, you know, America is all on the hook for that if it happens.
Does the Skybound partnership mean we could see Invincible or Walking Dead coming to Artist Edition line? Surely they know of your work, Scott, and they were like, we're just not printing a rando's books over here.
You know, we can definitely talk about it. I'm open to anything.
Blue. Oh my gosh. Yes. Blueberry. We can't even get Blueberry in America, man.
You know, I'd be all over it. I mean, any Mobius stuff would be a privilege to do. You know, yeah, Connoisseur edition. I haven't thought of that. I like that idea. You know, that would definitely be something. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah. Oh, dude. If you could get that licensing worked out, oh, that would be brilliant. Especially those Mobius issues. Now, I mean, the whole entire Blueberry library would be amazing to own in America. I think a handful of books have been translated. Five, if I'm not mistaken, but they were like in trade paperback format
right.
many years ago.
And honestly, you know, the Mobius stuff, you know, that's the gold standard, but the Colin Wilson books are also beautiful. Great stuff.
So you said that there is, or the next book is in September. Is that the very first Act 4 publishing book that's coming out, artist edition, or do you have one coming out before then?
I do have one coming out before, and that's Jason Pearson's Body Bags artist edition. That was a Kickstarter that I did with Kevin Gardner of 12 Gauge Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that for a variety of reasons, to help Jason's mom, and also to you know, sort of help the people who had backed a Kickstarter that never happened, that Jason had done about 10 years ago. And then eventually we are going to release that book through Skybound as well.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's coming to the market. That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of time. You know, it won't be right away, but you know, sometime in the next year and a half or so.
Excellent. When you're working with folks that, well, you mentioned like Darwin Cook, right? And then Jim Aparo, folks that are no longer here. But when you're working with folks that are here, do they ever say, hey, how about you use this piece? Does that ever happen? Or I've got this rare piece that I would love for you to use?
You know, it depends on the artist. You know, sometimes, you know, I talk very specifically about the material that'll go in with it in the book with, you know, say Walter Simonson. You know, he has a lot of stuff, and we're able to really, you know, pick and choose as we see fit. You know, he has a lot of complete stories, which is very helpful. David Mazzucchelli had some very specific ideas about what to include in the Batman Year One book, and You know, it really depends on the artist. Some really have very little input, and others have, you know, a lot of input. You know, Kevin Nolan had a lot of input in his book. Michael Golden really didn't have very much input in his, but that was his choice.
Gotcha. Hey Scott, how is it creating and editing an anthology book like Comics for Ukraine with so many different creative teams coming together?
You know, it can be a challenge. There were a lot of stories in that book, and but the one thing that sort of made it easier was everybody involved really wanted to see it happen, and you know, stepped up to the plate. Um, you know, big anthologies have been described as wrangling cats, and that really is, you know, sort of true. But you know, everybody's heart was in the right place, and that makes it you know, easier and gratifying.
And it went to a good cause too. It's a great book. And is the new Ragnarok single issue or graphic novel format? You just
It'll be a mini series as the previous ones were, and then it'll be collected.
Okay, and that's the one that's in the realm of the ice giants. Is that what he's talking about?
Yes,
because the first three books were out in trade paperback and hardcover, and then
but they were forced as miniseries, as comics. Yeah,
yeah. So he's wondering if they will be out that way too.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of Connoisseur editions, you mentioned two books in particular. You mentioned the Ragnarok, and we've talked about the Spirit. What other ideas do you have now that Project Viking has so kindly suggested doing something like Mobius's Blueberry? But what other ideas do you have, or what can you talk about?
You know, I don't really want to talk about too many things that aren't specifically signed as deals. But you know, I certainly have other ideas, things that I would like to do. You know, some are sort of pie in the sky, others are more attainable. Yeah, a bunch of different stuff. One thing I can tell you about an artist edition that's going to be happening sometime in early 2026. We're going to be releasing the Wally Wood EC Stories Expanded Edition, Artist Edition. Although I need to get a better title than that because you have edition twice in the. But and that'll include at least 3 new stories that weren't in the initial volume, and possibly as many as 6.
Oh man, so it'll be an expanded version of that.
Yeah. And you know, Wally Wood to me is truly one of the greatest comic artists of all time. So I could never get too much Wally Wood stuff from that period.
It's one of the greatest, man. And the EC stuff. Oh man. Yeah, you talk about like European artists, like a lot of the Warren stuff from those years of creepy and eerie that had the Spaniard invasion. A lot of the Spanish artists, oh man, they were just killing it left and right. Vampirella had that great artwork too. What's a modern artist that you have wanted to work in an artist edition, and you find out that they don't really draw on paper, everything is digital? Has that happened to you?
Not really. You know, I mean, most of the guys that I've done stuff with who've gone digital, you know, used to draw on paper. But I can tell you a couple of things that I would love to do by artists who do still draw on paper. Number 1 on my list is probably the Batman series by Mark Silvestri.
My gosh, yes. We talked about Mark Silvestri when you were here a year and a half ago, and he's my favorite artist. So I was like, X-Men by Silvestri, but then, yeah, okay.
Maybe someday an X-Men book, but I still need to I still need to collect a lot of scans. I don't have that many, unfortunately, but the Batman work is just phenomenal.
Oh gosh, yeah. Like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to say Jim Lee drew the most badass dude sitting on a chair. But I think Mark Silvestri actually has him beat. Oh my gosh, it's so good, man.
Yeah, that I would too.
And Alan Davis Artist Edition. That's absolutely.
Yeah, I've spoken to Alan about it, so it's something that's on my radar. But there's just so many books I can do.
That's right. That is the thing too. And it's like, and if you go with Alan Davis, you personally, Scott, what era, what comic line would you do?
I love the Excalibur stuff. It's beautiful work, but he's done so much stuff. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if we could put Captain Britain in there too. I don't know, because it would be a Marvel book.
Marvel
so I don't,
UK,
yeah, I don't know if contractually I'd be able to put that in. But I love that stuff too. That's where I first saw his work.
He's done a lot of stuff for DC too, like the Nail and Batman Year 2.
Yep,
that's right. Batman Year 2 Artist Edition. Fall of Batman Year 1.
Unfortunately, unlike David, Alan didn't keep all that work.
Oh, ouch. I would like to raise my hand and ask for a Joe Kubert, Sergeant Rock.
Actually, I did a Best of DC War.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That had a lot of Kubert stuff in it. Actually, IDW just reprinted it, including it was one of the last books I did for IDW, and it included some extra Kubert material, an entire story in layout form. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that wasn't available in the first edition.
That's right.
It was added here. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. I just did an overview of it a couple months ago. And this is a really good question from Taylor. Talks Comics. What about anything from Tim Sale, Batman, or any of his Marvel work?
At some point, I would love to do a Tim Sale book, and I have a few ideas, and I have some leads on some collectors with some really great material. I'd love to do DC and Marvel. My favorite work by Tim probably ever is Superman: A Man for All Seasons, and
it's beautiful.
I would like to do a book that had a lot of that material.
So yeah, you do some stuff that's been painted too, right? Not just strictly because like that Kevin Nolan book that you worked on had his material in black and white, and then it had the painted stuff too.
Right. There's an entire graphic novel that was painted by Kevin in there.
Yeah, it was Steve Gerber's book, wasn't it? The Infernal Man thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, some great stuff.
That was one of the easier stories to track down because you see that flat file back there behind me.
Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit.
Yeah. All of the Kevin Nolan Man-Thing stuff is in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
I bought it from Kevin a long time ago before he even finished it.
So you're a collector. I mean, that's how all of this began. Have you ever ran across a collector that has some of the pieces that you need, and they're like, "No, you're not allowed to touch that. No one's allowed to touch that."
Oh yeah.
Or has everybody been pretty open? Like, yeah, man, go ahead and scan it. It's all good.
Most people are pretty open, but there have been people who haven't wanted to participate, and that's fine. It's their artwork; they can do it. Mm-hmm. It's a drag when it's some work that you really want to get.
Yeah,
but there's a collector in LA he mainly concentrates on covers, and he has hundreds of really great covers, but he doesn't want to be part of artist editions. It's funny, he's always telling me he loves the books and he buys them, It's just he feels that it'll affect the value negatively if they're printed, which I don't quite see that. But, hey, it's his opinion. That's all right. It's okay, right?
Yeah, sure. A fan that knows the value of these things that other people that cannot afford original copies, right? Like, I don't know. You're right. Everybody is entitled to, and it is at the end of the day his piece, right?
Yeah.
Alan David says, "Run on Excalibur simply flawless." Oh, first, and when he came back with Mark Farmer on inks, oh my gosh, his Batman and Outsiders is very good as well.
Yeah, Mark Farmer, just an amazing inker.
And Max, perhaps for Connoisseur edition, when Sam Keith is ready to talk. That's a good idea. I like that. Project Viking.
I would like to. It would have to be a couple of different. It would have to be several books, though.
So, any of Jack Kirby's work that you haven't been able to do in the artist edition format that you want to?
Sure. I mean, if I could dream and have access to anything, I'd want to do, Boys Ranch, because that's honestly my favorite Jack Kirby artwork. It was a 1950s Western that was just beautiful. I'd like to do a book of Kirby's spreads, double page spreads that he did for Marvel back in the 70s. I don't know if there's enough to do a book, but those are great. I'd like to do something in some way to do 2001. I've been lucky. I've done a lot of really great stuff by Kirby. I've done the Thor book. I've done 2 Fantastic Four books.
Yeah.
New Gods, Forever People, Commandy, 2 books of Commandy. So I've done a lot of Kirby already. So he's pretty well covered. But, again, I don't think there's a more important comic artist than Jack Kirby.
I think Taylor would agree with you. Still need a Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein artist. Dude, give me a Connoisseur edition of that. That book needs to be reprinted and an artist edition. Oh, I'm all over that. That's, oh.
We'll see. It's under contract with IDW for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. But I would like to at some point. I would love to. I've been talking about it for 10 years.
And it's out of print, by the way. That big, beautiful hardcover that I think it was IDW put out. It is completely out of print, and don't even look at the third-party prices, man. A Neil Adams X-Men edition or the Kree Skrull War? Just Neil Adams, right? Have you? Has there been? I don't have any of the older stuff, but has there been a Neil Adams that you've worked on?
Yeah. The first thing was a portfolio of a story called Thrill Kill from Creepy, which is one of his great stories. And then coming out sometime this year, I think, from IDW is Neil Adams DC Stories Artist Edition, and that was one of the biggest artist editions, maybe the biggest one I ever worked on. I finished it up after I left IDW. I couldn't not finish that book because Neil Adams, he was my favorite artist when I was a kid. I have great fondness for his work. So I finished the book up. It's coming out at some point. I'm not really sure when, but it went to the printer. I approved it to the printer. If you're a Neil Adams fan, this is going to be like a phenomenal book. By the way, this is my wife, Amanda.
Hey, Amanda.
You were seen on the screen, honey. Here, come over.
Oh, no.
Okay, never mind. She's shy.
She's a big help on Act 4.
She's a huge help on Act 4. I could not do it without her. Then that's the absolute truth. But The Neil Adams book will have 7 complete stories: Batman, Green Lantern, Deadman, 2 of his best mystery stories, a Private Life of Clark Kent story that is just wonderful, and a short El Diablo Western story that is inked by Bernie Wrightson.
Oh, damn. Bernie Wrightson inking Adams.
288 pages, and there are 5 foldouts. It's going to be a killer book.
Damn. When do you see that one coming out?
You know, I think the last time I checked on Amazon, it was in July, but I'm not sure.
And that's through is that one through IDW?
Yeah, that's IDW.
Okay.
But I have my hopes of doing a Marvel book at some point.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Oh,
Although,
man.
but Neil didn't do nearly as much for Marvel as he did for DC.
No, but the stuff that he did for Marvel, I mean, it is a big staple of, X-Men and then of course the Avengers. So there is that, but you're right, not nearly as much as he did for DC. But it would definitely be about hunting. The hunt is on.
Yeah.
John Buscema, Thor, or Conan. Conan, there was a Kickstarter, or I'm sorry, a Zoop artist edition. I don't know if anybody has gotten those yet or not. People have been asking me. I never got a copy.
I think they're just starting to come out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, people have been saying on the artist edition message boards that they're coming out. And then I've done 2 John Buscema books. One is Silver Surfer, and the other one is a mixture of stuff that had some Thor. There was a complete Thor story, as well as an Avengers story. It has a lot of different material.
When you're talking about a complete story, are you talking about everything, cover to all the page, internal pages?
All the interior pages of that story. So sometimes it'll have the cover, but not always. For instance, on the Jim Aparo book, there are right now 8 complete stories in it. Looks like it might be going up to 9, actually.
Wow.
But at least 4 of those have the covers as well. So it's the stories and the covers.
Do you find it that it's usually the same person that has everything?
If it's a complete story, yeah. It's although not always. The Green Lantern story that's in the Neil Adams book, that was broken up. It used to be complete. It was Green Lantern 84. And that does not exist in its entirety anymore. But, I managed to, that was easier because it was broken up, in the last 10 years. And so I was able to track down every page from it. But
I have to ask, Scott, what is the longest you've been working on a project, tracking things down, and you were like, I guess that's enough?
I don't know. I mean, there are so many different projects that I'd like to do that I am accumulating art for. It's hard to, give up on something, I mean, I guess I always figure that, there are some books I know that I can't do. And I don't even bother thinking about them. Like Jack Cole's Plastic Man. I would love to do a Jack Cole Plastic Man. That would be, Nirvana. But the work just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it because it's gone or nobody knows?
No, but I only know where 6 pages are.
Damn. Yeah, I think about like how long a project would be for you. I know for me, it's like, is that enough? Because you do have to put a stop to these things, right? Like a project that you're working on, and you're like, okay, that's enough. That's as many pages as I can get in there. And
yeah, sometimes you just have to let it go. But I don't know. I mean, I've been lucky enough to do. I think I've done like 90 of these books so far.
you've done a lot, Scott. It's freaking crazy and awesome.
It is sort of crazy. It is sort of crazy.
We're eating good, man. We're eating good. People love it. I mean, once you get that bug for these artist edition, knowing the thing is like, like for me, I don't know if I'll ever own any original art. That's the thing for me. I don't know if I ever will. My wife owns an original page of Alf because it was a gift from one of my friends. But I don't own any. My kids own original pages from the Mega Man comic, but I don't own any. And for me, it's just as amazing holding these books. And, with the paper stock that you use, it does feel like I own this piece. So it's beautiful, beautiful work that you do.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
And you are so welcome. And I know you're being humble, but I know people come up to you and they know who you are and they know how much work you put into these things too. Oh my gosh, a Barry Windsor Smith storyteller is an artist edition. Oh my gosh.
I have made it very clear to Barry that I want to do artist editions with him. So it's in his court.
Oh gosh, a Weapon X artist edition, please, Barry. That's something up my alley. If Scott has ties to get Eternaut or Corto Maltese reprinted, that would be amazing. Also, some types of James O'Barr. Oh, the Crow Stuff short stories collection would be awesome. Eternaut was printed by, was it Fantagraphics, right, in America? But Corto Maltese was done by IDW, and I think the card covers of that project got canceled.
Yeah, it was done. IDW published it. Dean Mulaney was the guy who did it. He's the guy who does the Library of American Comics stuff.
Yeah,
great collections that are fantastic. I don't know if the Corto Maltese artwork is all in one spot. It would be really tough to track it down, but that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Would your process or approach for books be different if they were paintings? Oh, like Charles Vess's Spider-Man covers in this format.
Yeah, I've done a number of painted things. Like I mentioned the Kevin Nolan Man-Thing story. I also, in the Bill Sienkiewicz book, it had the first issue of, as well as pages from subsequent issues, Electra Assassin. So, it's you just try to, it's a little bit more difficult because you want to really get the feel for the original. You don't want to do something that just doesn't look like it. On the Kevin Nolan book, we went back and forth, Kevin and I scanned everything and I made adjustments with it, and we got it to the point where he was happy with it. He was actually really easy on that. He liked it from the beginning, but I mainly had issues with the scanning, and I wanted to make adjustments, and he was very supportive and he liked it.
Do the artists that are still, of course, with us, or I guess the family or estate, once you have the product ready to go to print, do you like to show them, like, to get a thumbs up, or do you just go ahead and then like show them the finished product?
If the artists are living, I definitely show it to them, and even if they're not, I'll often show the families. Artist editions. We also at IDW, it was always very important to me, and I'm going to continue this. Even the non-creator owned books, the artists will get, they get royalties on these.
That's awesome.
They deserve it. It's their work.
No, that's awesome. Seriously. Scott, are there any new comics you're reading, whether it's monthly or graphic novels that have been published in the last few years? Yeah, that is, you love old classic artwork. I'm sorry, I use that term loosely. Old, like, well, Chris Samney's art isn't that old. I mean, that Black Widow only came out a few years ago, or
Well, but speaking of Chris and Mark, I love the Batman and Robin Year One book.
Yeah.
I also really enjoyed the Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins Batman, the one that was set in the 40s that was out recently. Yeah, beautiful stuff and fun to read.
So you are still reading. Good. Awesome.
Occasionally, not as much as I should. It's there's just between working on my own stuff, there's just no time to even go to the comic shop. But I go to my local comic shop from time to time and I pick stuff up.
Marshall Rogers Batman. Yeah,
that one's a little bit that's sort of difficult because I want to do a Marshall Rogers artist edition for DC work. It wouldn't just be Batman stuff, it would be other stuff too. I can't find enough of it yet. There's a good example of what you were talking about, having to give up on it. I might have to give up on that one because I just don't have enough material. I've been able to find about 70 pages and I really can't do it with less than 140, 130.
Oh man,
I would love to. I mean, that's it's one of the best runs on Batman ever. The work that he and Steve Englehart did.
George Perez. Did you? I can't recall. George on DC. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, he's drawn every character just about. An artist edition of that Avengers Justice League book. Oh my God, that would be amazing. That would take a miracle, though. I mean, that's a license. It was a miracle that we got a reprint of a trade paperback of that when George was still with us.
Bye, honey.
So something like that would be a miracle. But what about something like Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Let's put a pin in George Perez and revisit that at some point in the future because I definitely have hopes to do some stuff with George.
Love hearing that. All right, what are some of the oldest surviving pages you ever found from the Golden Age or before?
Well, the oldest material that I ever did an artist edition of was starting in 1946, and it was The Spirit by Will Eisner. I did 2 books that collected from 46 to 52. And then EC Comics, I did a lot of EC material. I don't know, 5 or 6 books. And that's all from, 1950 to 55. But, there's plenty of older artwork out there. I'm hoping someday to do a DC covers book that is twice up covers. And I have some scans of covers from the early 1940s.
Have you ever ran across something that somebody has had and you were like, I don't think I'll be able to use this because of the condition?
No. To me, the whole point of this is showing the original art as it actually appears. So it would have to be something extraordinarily bad for me not to do it. As long as you can see the art and get a feel for it and the scan is good, then I'm open to anything pretty much.
Like, I was thinking of pages from people like Mike Wieringo. There were pages that were sold of his art that a few years ago, I can't remember. I remember reading an article that somebody had taken one of his Spider-Man original art pieces that they owned and they drew on top of it. And I thought, so they, I cannot remember who it was, but they had taken an original Mike Wieringo piece that was unused and drew on top of it, claiming that it was a Mike Wieringo variant cover to one of their comics.
Oh my God.
I thought, oh my God, that is so, that to me is blasphemous. Like, why would you even mess with that? Like, yeah. But I know that, a lot of his stuff was sold. I think his brother's still doing that. They're still doing the Ringo Awards. And I know that his brother's still in charge of like selling his original art after he passed. Gil Kane Marvel covers.
That is something that I hope to do at some point.
The Spirit Artist editions are fantastic, excepting the page count, and Outer Space Spirit with the Wally Wood art would be nice.
Yeah, that's just incredibly beautiful stuff. There's not enough material. I actually did print 2 pages from the Wally Wood stories in one of the Spirit books.
And let's see here. Any chance of getting the license or for Connoisseur? People are loving this Connoisseur edition. Scott, look what you started.
I'm not sure. I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to talk with the people at the Eisner Estate. Dennis Kitchen's an old good friend of mine, and he is one of the people in charge of representing them, him and Judy Hansen. Mm-hmm. I would be interested in that. I would, but I don't know if they would. But we could definitely talk about it. It would be a best of, I could see it, I mean, Eisner is one of those guys. He did so many short stories. And to me, it's almost like trying to pick, either your favorite Far Side cartoon or your favorite Norman Rockwell painting. There are so many to choose from.
I got to go with the Tarzan one where he's practicing to introduce himself to Jane. He's swinging on a vine. He's like, "Hi, how are you? My name is Tarzan." Then he lands and he's like, "Me, Tarzan. Damn it." That's my favorite Far Side strip. Right. You're right. It is hard because there's a lot of good ones. Thank you, Bruce, for the super chat. What is the plan for distribution since Diamond is having issues? Lunar or Kickstarter? Skybound's using Lunar, I believe, right?
They use Lunar for their comic, for the direct market stuff, and Simon & Schuster for the book market.
So there is the answer already, Bruce. Lunar and Simon & Schuster. What is the most interesting and surprising thing you found on a page of original art? That is an excellent question. I like that. Like after an art is printed, if it's an artist, sometimes they sign it to somebody, right? And it's a gift. And doesn't necessarily mean that you're scanning it from the person that received it, because that person has every right to sell it too. But have you ever found anything else, or like in the back, like an extra doodle from the artist?
Oh yeah. John Buscema is a great example of that. Quite often
his
work would have beautiful sketches on the back of the pages.
Lucky bastards. That's awesome.
Sometimes they were better than the pages, seriously. Original art is, you can never tell what you'll find. Actually, there are some pages out there that about 40 years ago, I lived in Brooklyn with my pal Sean McManus, and we used to play. We'd stay up very late and we'd watch, Mary Tyler Moore reruns, and we'd play gin. And sometimes, I was an art dealer and I would sometimes need scrap paper, so I would turn a page over and on the back there'll be a bunch of different numbers, and people now, if they get those pages, they'll have no idea what they might be. It was me keeping score of our gin games. It didn't affect the art, just on the back.
No, that's it. Okay. And yeah, I like the sketches they would just do for people, right? Like that were buying the pieces, or were they just doodling because they were just sketching
Purely out of the love of drawing, And another guy who did a lot of stuff on the back was Dave Cockrum. So you'll see quite often, Dave Cockrum would draw on the back of his X-Men pages just beautiful drawings of, maybe Storm or alien spaceships. He used to draw a lot of really cool alien spaceships. But, those two in particular, they just love to draw. They couldn't not draw.
Did you read a lot of Golden Age comics?
Yeah, I mean, most of the Golden Age stuff I read were things like EC comics. Those are, to me, EC is probably the best line ever. And also the Spirit stuff. I was a big fan of the Spirit work. And then things by artists that I really enjoyed. Macro Boy was a favorite of mine, so I loved his Green Llama and his Captain Marvel Jr. But to me, I was always more art centric, so it depended on who was drawing it. So like Reed Crandall on Doll Man, things like that, or Lou Fine comics, things like that. I'm not a giant fan of a lot of old for the sake reading it for the sake of being old Golden Age comics. I have a very soft spot for Superman and Batman, but the Superman stuff that I love is the stuff I read in the 70s when I was a kid. The story, the Carrie Bates and Elliot S. Magan stories that Kurt Swan drew, and then the Garcia Lopez stuff, and yeah.
But I think
to me, the golden age of comics is when you're 12 years old. So.
Oh yes, for everybody, right? Whether you grew up in the 80s, 90s, 60s, 70s, that doesn't matter. At that age, it's such an impact on your life that comics never get better than that for you. Like, I still read comics and I'm still impressed by comics. But for me, comics will never be better than they were when I was a kid. And I think that goes for everybody. That's why I can't argue with people that read comics nowadays that are kids and are like, oh, this is the best stuff I've read. Or they were kids like 5 years ago. There were things that I was like, that's pretty bad. But they're like, no, it's great stuff. Skybound News. We went over that. We went over that a little bit earlier. Yeah. And you can always keep in mind if you're watching this later too.
And then we have the Craig Russell thing. I did a Craig Russell artist that already had some War of the World stuff in it. It was great stuff. Gene Colan, I did the Tomb of Dracula book already, and I have my sights set on doing another Gene Colan Marvel book. But that's we'll figure that out later.
And Gene Day, Master Kung Fu, Big John Buscema's Tarzan.
Yeah, it would be tough to track enough down.
Let's see. Scott, the Challengers of the Unknown have that relentless bravery, living on extra time, which I find inspiring. What other aspects do you find fascinating about the Challengers?
I love those early books that Jack Kirby did with Wally Wood. Beautiful stuff, great stories. Challengers are fantastic.
And let's see, Bob Layton on Iron Man Artist Edition. Yeah, Henry's got all the ideas. It's all right. I was just we did go over the Skybound information at the very beginning if you want to go back and watch that. Okay, last one I'll ask. Mike Allred. He said he would love to have an artist edition made of his work, but is too humble and doesn't think he has anything worthy of it, which we all know is crazy.
I'll put it out there, Mike. I would love to do an artist edition with you. Let's talk.
Oh, look at that. James, screen grab that. Or no, click that, James. We'll send it over to Mike. And Pete Craig. Oh my gosh. This is another edition that I think, was it Dark Horse that printed it last? The adaptation of that?
Well, you know, Craig does his own artist editions with his partner, Wayne Howard. So they might have already done an artist edition of that. I'm not sure. They've done like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know if they've done one of those, though. Could be a licensing thing, too. You know what IDW had that I thought was absolutely gorgeous?
What?
It was and it's out of print. It's The Wizard's Apprentice by Kurt Busiek.
The what?
It's The Wizard's Apprentice by Kurt Busiek.
Oh, no, it's called
Wizard's Tale. Wizard's Tale.
Wizard's Tale. Yeah. I actually brought that to IDW. Kurt's an old pal of mine.
Long out of print, man. Just saying, it's a beautiful book with oh my gosh, was it Wenzel? Was that who did the art?
David Wenzel.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book. Yeah, I think there's a lot of these that just have been out of print. I don't think that IDW is even aware of. They got a lot of things on their plate right now, and I think they're mainly focused on turtles right now. It's a good thing to be focused on, especially when you know, Transformers is a Skybound, and you also have G.I. Joe now at Skybound, and Scott Dunbier.
And they're killing it.
Just put that together.
No, I mean, but you know, the Transformers and the G.I. Joe, they're killing it. They won an Eisner Award for Transformers last year, which is, you know, it's sort of remarkable for an Eisner to go to a licensed book. But anyway. Yeah,
you don't see that a lot. It's great. I don't see IDW using the artist edition name when they're so far in the hole. Well, like, as long as it's licensed out by Scott, I think it's how it's done. Gil Kane did so many killer Marvel covers, it would be possible to do like 3 or 4 artist editions just on the covers alone.
Let's start with one for now. I'd love it. You know, and I'd love to do a Walter Simonson covers book too.
I know we talked about Arthur Adams too. When the last time you were here, or maybe it was the time before that, we had talked about Arthur Adams. That's just one of my favorites because I just love his X-Men. And he's, you know, and he's big into kaiju too, so he's got quite a range about the things that he loves to draw.
Yeah, he did that amazing Godzilla book.
Yes,
and Creatures from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, so he's a big fan of not just superheroes, but also like monster type stories and books. We need an Adam Hughes and Brian Steelfreeze would be a good one. And Hughes has done so many covers. That's another one that you could probably do like 4 or 5 books on alone. Look, getting all kinds of ideas and one Scott Dunbier. John Byrne cover book. Actually, Joe had another one too earlier. Was it not the John Buscema Tarzan one? The Monsters Artist Edition, several volumes. I like the Perez one, but you said to put a pin on that and come back to that soon, or one day. One day. Is there an artist that you've wanted to work with that I know besides the Katsuhiro Otomo stuff, but like here in America that just isn't into artist editions, doesn't see the point?
You know, one guy that I approached about doing artist editions who wasn't into it was Richard Corbin. And the funny thing about it was he told me that he thought his work would not hold up to the format. And, you know, sorry, that's crazy. His work would, would look beautiful in the format. But, you know, who knows, maybe one day.
Yeah, I'm looking at I was looking at my Den books that Jose Villarrubia colored, and they're beautiful. I would love to see original art like that. Trust Scott. I'm excited to get these in my hands. The Andrew Ross covers would be one. Yeah, Josh is the gentleman that helped interview you and Kevin from 12 Gauge.
Oh yeah, hey man, thanks. Nice seeing you.
He did a great job, and I really appreciated that. And Jim Steranko, Nick Fury. Oh, that's a good one too. Yes, I've already told him about Mark Silvestri, and he told me he likes that Batman stuff though.
I love that Batman stuff.
He draws a badass Batman.
And talking about books that you almost give up on. Jim Steranko, it's been going on for such a long time. I solicited that at IDW 10 years ago. But I'm still hopeful. Maybe someday.
Is it when you mean solicit that, like you're talking about like trying to get original pieces?
Oh, no, I have enough to do it. There were issues that Jim had. He wants to design it himself. I mean, I have enough to do the book, but he wants to design it himself. So I'm hoping that someday we get to the point where he'll do it.
Where he just does it himself.
Well, no, where he does the design work, meaning he wants to do there are 15 stories that would be in that book, and I have the art for most of it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of him doing chapter breaks for it. He did chapter breaks in the first book. And honestly, I'm amazed I got the first book done, but I would love to do that second Steranko book.
What okay, you said you had enough material for it. What how much material, and from I assume his stuff on Nick or Shield and Captain America?
Yeah, I I have most of it, and what I would do is I would fill in the gaps with stats. But for instance, there were 60 pages of Captain America plus 3 covers plus an unpublished cover. Of the Captain America stuff, I'm missing 1 page, and I have all the rest. Of the Nick Fury stuff, I have most of the Nick Fury. I have most of the Strange Tale stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I have a lot of work. I have a lot of work that I've been collecting over the years.
And the entirety of his Captain America issues. Let's get on.
I'm missing 1 page. I'm missing 1 page.
Do you know who has said page?
No idea. But I saw it in 1982 or 1983 at a New York City Comic Con, a Second Sunday show they used to be called. I saw that page hanging up for $200, and I thought, too much money, and so I didn't buy it. But and I have not been able to track it down.
The memory on you, Scott, that's crazy. You remember a page. Of course, it's the page that got away. Is that one of the pages that got away?
It's a page that I regret not buying. It was it's the first page of number 110 where Captain America, where Steve Rogers is lighting a cigarette and he's in front of a poster of Captain America. So it was a memorable page.
Man. The one that got away. Is there a bigger page that got away from you that you can think of? That you were like, damn it, I should have bought that when I had the chance.
Oh, so many.
What's your favorite? What's a favorite piece of yours that you own that you're like, I love this page. Like I will never let it go. It will be buried with me. Not that you would ever do that. But you know what I'm saying? Like I think if you think of a piece that, like for me, I know what piece of art would be my favorite piece. It's my favorite page from a comic book.
What's that?
It's John Byrne's X-Men, Super Sexy Savage Land Storm. Like that page made me a man. When I was a kid, I was like,
all right.
I was like, I like these curves on this lady. I think that's what I like. And it was that final page of Sauron with what was it, 114, I think. I think of all people that own it, I think it's actually Rob Liefeld that actually owns that piece.
Yeah, he's a big fan, so possibly.
Yeah.
My favorite page is something that is very specific to me. You know, I don't know if a lot of people would care that much about it. It's a Wally Wood page from All-Star number, I don't know. It's the first appearance of Superman in All-Star. And it's actually Clark Kent sitting at his desk, and he's being summoned to the JSA, and he's sitting there at his desk, and he's thinking of all the reasons in the past of why he never responded for years and years, because there'd be the newspaper to put to bed, something he'd have to do, but there weren't any reasons. And so there's a shot of him. He gets up, he walks to a storage room. There's a silhouette of him with his shirt going like this. And then the last panel is him leaping at, because he didn't fly. He would leap at a single bound. And the very last text on it is there's a word balloon that says, "Look up in the sky."
Oh, nice.
And so Paul Levitt wrote that. And that was one of my favorite stories when I was a kid. And that was my favorite page. So I have that.
At what age did you acquire that page?
Not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
It just randomly appeared. And, it just happened to be a guy was selling it. I made him an offer and he took it.
Man. Was it one of Wally Wood's All-Star comics that he also wrote?
No, this was written by Paul Levitz.
We need an Alan Davis, Alan Moore, Captain America, or Captain Britain artist edition. We were just talking about that a little bit earlier. Talking about Excalibur and Captain Britain. Let's see, so are museums such as George Lucas's new museum acquiring more comic art for the display? Oh man, are we saying that there is competition now for museums?
They have a nice collection. They have the entire Robert Crumb Bible art.
Oh, wow. And was it All-Star Comics 62?
Probably.
I love that you acquired that just 10 years ago. You must have felt like, because by that point you had already been doing artist editions. Like you were a collector of original art. So it's almost like the circle is almost complete, right? With that piece coming into your lap. Did you just see it at a show? You said it just happened.
No, a friend of mine told me about it, that he knew a guy who had it. And we worked it out. It was very easy.
That's awesome. So it must have been something that he wanted from your collection that
no, he just wanted to sell some stuff. He needed to raise some money. Fair enough.
One of our mutual friends, I know Nick is a huge collector of original art.
Nick Barucci?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, he is. He has a great collection.
Oh my gosh. His that's why I mentioned George Perez. Like he's got, I think, an entire issue of Crisis on Infinite Earths, if not 2 entire issues.
He has issue number 8,
yep.
which I scanned before Nick got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Wait, where did you scan it for?
It was owned by the inker. Oh, what did I scan it for?
Yeah, what project?
I just scanned great art, and
because one day it might you might make a book out of it, huh?
It's better to have too much than too little.
I love that. And you have backups of this stuff, right? These scans.
Yeah.
Got to have. Don't trust it entirely on the cloud. Yes, that's right. Nick is the one that sent Melanie my wife, her first original piece, which is the Alf comic.
Nice.
let's see. Tom Brevoort has that page on his website. It's dope.
Which page?
I don't know. You talking about the All Star comics or which page Harvey P. Card's Ghost? And are you still hunting original pieces, or is there a grail that you want?
Not really. I mean, if there's something that kicks me the right way, for nostalgia, then sure.
Uh-huh.
But I can't afford to buy original art anymore for the most part. I mean, I'm priced out of the market.
I think these pieces, oh my gosh, like these original pieces that are going for a ridiculous amount of money. What was the one that I saw? Was it Rob Liefeld's Deadpool? It might have been like Rob Liefeld's Deadpool. I was like, whoa. I was totally investing in the wrong things when I was younger. I should have been invested in like real like comic book art, apparently. Because it has gone up drastically just how much these pieces are going for.
As far as how many books, I'm gonna be shooting for in 20. I mean, there are only 2 books in 2025. In 2026, I think we're gonna look at about a dozen.
Oh, nice. And that's a mix of artist edition and connoisseur editions.
Yeah, and then also some. I'm hoping in 2026 to see some new comics as well.
Well, when is the expected date for the new Ragnarok?
Possibly the very end of this year.
Okay, that's awesome. Speaking of Grail, a Mike Grail book is a must. Oh, either Warlord or Green Arrow.
Yeah, I'd like to do. I'd like to do that, especially the Warlord stuff. I mean, honestly, I'd love to do. There's never been a real nice collection of the Mike Grell Warlord stuff. So I would love to do a Warlord book, and I'd like to recolor it.
I'm all over that. I love his Warlord stuff. Then again,
as far as an artist edition, I'd totally be into doing a Grell Warlord Green Lantern Green Arrow book.
And he's got some nice pieces out there too. And you convince Sean Gordon Murphy to do an artist edition.
He's a tremendous artist. I would love to do. There's a lot of guys out there. I mean, Jock, fantastic stuff. I mean, Murphy, great stuff. Lieber Mayho, there are so many.
Do you have a current favorite artist that you like? And you may pursue?
Working today? Yeah, I really like Chris Omni.
Yeah, well, and you've gotten to work with him, right? Twice?
Yeah.
The Black Widow book, and you did that, was it Daredevil that you did?
Daredevil. And, I we've been talking, it depends whether DC would go for it. DC have been incredibly nice in allowing me to do some books, and I have a bunch of things that are planned. One thing I would like to do that they haven't signed on yet for is Batman and Robin Year One, but Chris wants to do that, so fingers crossed that'll happen.
Oh, and that's still coming out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great stuff though.
Yeah. Any chance would get the last 6 issues of Chris Samney's Black Widow for a volume 2?
Always a chance.
When you were working on that book, like, for those full issues, did Chris keep the artwork, or did you have to round that up? So
no,
so he has the original art.
He has all the original art and all the layouts. So both those books had the layouts as well as the original art.
Wow. So I wonder how some folks, I guess, he doesn't need it, right? He doesn't need to get rid of it, so he just decides to keep it. That's really cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of guys, not a lot, but there were a number of guys who were like that. I mean, Walter Simonson, for instance, he very rarely sells his art. He does from time to time, but Chris, he's one of those guys who, he takes great pride in what he does, and he wants to hang on to it. I totally respect that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are a lot of artists that keep their stuff. I just don't think about that. I just assume that, to make extra money, they'll end up selling their original art.
Oh shit! Did Andrew Robinson lose art in the fire?
Oh, I don't know. Especially since he just lost a bunch. Oof.
I heard that he was in the danger zone. I didn't realize he had his place had burned down. Is that true, Josh?
Sorry if this has been. I'm waiting on his reply. Sorry if this has been talked about, but is there any word on Right Since Frankenstein? We did talk a little bit about that.
It has been talked about. It's under license with IDW, so they have the rights to it. We'll see in the future.
So it looks like, I don't know if he lost art, but he lost his house. Oof. And yeah, he did.
Oh.
That sucks.
I have a couple of friends who lost their houses.
Yeah, I do as well. And it's that whole insurance thing. It's a nightmare right now. It's just, oh man, I feel bad for the people over there.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, I actually did a Frank Cho artist edition.
How long ago was that one?
About 8 years ago, I think.
Yeah, that's one that definitely has not been reprinted. You had to GoFundMe to buy new supplies. Oh man, that sucks. That sucks. Well, I mean, something very similar happened to Eric Larson back in his early Image days. Like, there was a house fire. That's why it really surprised me how much of that art was in that vault edition of Savage Dragon, because he had lost so much of it.
He lost most of. I don't think he lost any Savage Dragon art. I think he lost his Marvel stuff.
Oh gosh, like his Spidey stuff.
Yeah.
Ouch. I remember him saying that he lost some of the original art for Dragon, like the couple of the first issues.
Oh, did he? Oh, crap.
Yeah, which is why it was near impossible to find like anything outside of the first. I'm not talking about. I'm sorry, not the ongoing series, but that first 3-issue miniseries. Let's see. Dave Johnson has gone on record saying he's hanging on to his art to sell later in life.
That's smart.
And it gives Scott a good place to go and scan the stuff, so he doesn't have to go about everywhere in the U.S.
Actually, I've gotten a bunch of scans from Dave. He's been really generous about sending me stuff for various books. Not his own stuff yet, but on Michael Golden and other things, he's been very generous.
Do you sometimes see see artists that hold on to their art, or I'm sorry, if the penciler hasn't kept it, and then you mentioned the inker keeping that Crisis on Infinite Earths page, do they end up keeping it, and then does that sometimes go to the letterer too? Because I remember one time there was supposed to be a way they split these things up.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, what George and Jerry Ordway did was they split complete issues. So Jerry Ordway had issue number 8, and he held on to that until fairly recently when he sold it to Nick, and I got scans from him before that.
Nice. And just in case. Oh, this is an excellent question. Who's the most famous guy you had to get a scan from, or famous person? I like that.
Steven Spielberg.
Who was it?
Steven Spielberg.
Oh, are you serious? Was it a Duck comic? What did he have?
The cover to Mad Comics #1 by Harvey Kurtzman.
He owns that? That's awesome. Yeah. I didn't know he was a collector of original art. I guess go figure.
He is, yeah.
Anybody else? Nicolas Cage? Any original Superman art?
No. Let's see. Graham Nash. Actually, no. I never scanned anything from Graham's collection. I sold him art, but that was a long time ago. I've scanned stuff from Thomas Jane's collection. He was in Hung and The Punisher.
Yeah, I knew that he was a big collector too.
Yeah. And who else? David Mandel, who's a famous writer. He was the showrunner on Veep.
Mhm.
He has an amazing collection. He's been incredibly generous in letting me scan his collection. He probably holds the record for most artist edition covers by one collector, that I've used.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Leo DiCaprio. Let's see. Yeah, I've never met him, but there's a pretty funny story about him buying original art at Comic-Con. He bought he bought some art from Jeff Darrow, and Darrow. Hang on a second. Okay. He bought a piece from Jeff Darrow, and him and some pals were looking at the art at San Diego, and Darrow, apparently DiCaprio said, "Look at this page, it's fat," and Jeff looked at him and said, "You guys sound like a bunch of Hollywood punks." He had no idea who it was, and then he bought the page from Jeff, and so that was when Jeff met Leonardo DiCaprio, which is pretty funny.
I missed a DiCaprio story because my internet crashed. I don't know if you saw my text or not, sir, but I
did.
Okay, good deal. Who Jeff? Who?
Darrow.
Oh, he bought a piece from Jeff Darrow?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that guy is insane. I was I know you know this at New York Comic Con, and he was drawing on his table, and apparently they auction off his art, and this is a very common thing.
Yes.
Like his placemat table. Yeah, that's awesome. And yes, I agree. A Jeff Darrow artist edition would be insane. Dark Horse released one of the last what was it? The Shaolin Cowboy, one of their last stories in a big edition with no words. There was no lettering or anything. It's the same story. It was just released in a bigger format with no dialogue and no word bubbles. Leo has great taste. If a page gets sold after you scan it, can the new owner refuse to? Oh, no, I wouldn't think so, but I'll let you answer that, Scott. If a page gets sold after you scan it, can the new owner refuse to allow it to be published?
No, just because you buy original art doesn't mean you have publication rights. So the copyright and trademark holders, they're the ones that matter on that.
There we go. This is an excellent question, Dom. I love the interviews you did on Comic Book Pro's channel for Lake Como. Will you be doing more of those, Scott?
Yes, I will. I am hoping to get those started sometime next month. For those of you who don't know, the Lake Como Comic Art Festival is amazing, fantastic. I used to go to Lucca in Italy, and that used to be the most beautiful place I've ever been to for a show. Lake Como has taken over that spot because it's just, there's nothing like it. It is possibly the most beautiful place in the world. Certainly the most beautiful place I've ever been to. I will be doing more podcasts. This one, another 6, I think, with some of the folks who are friends of mine. I'll be doing an interview with J. Scott Campbell. I'll be doing interviews with others as well. Mike Perkins, who's also going to the show, and others. But if you have a chance to go to this show, don't hesitate. It's not a comic book show, it's an art show, and it's very small. We're talking about maybe less than 400 people, but it is such an amazing experience, and it's just a fun, great time. But yes, I will be doing more podcasts in the coming months. And actually, Omar and I were talking about bringing Steve Morger onto an episode at some point to talk about Lake Como, but we still need to work those details out, Omar.
Absolutely, yeah. I was waiting on to get some dates, but I am always willing.
I will try to get them to respond to that.
And that's okay. People get busy. I completely understand that. This is a really good question. If you do end up getting the artist editions, I think I've shared this with you before. I do a poll for Marvel, and now we started doing one for DC of out of print omnibus editions and absolute editions and epic editions. But if you ever do end up getting 100% of the artist editions, we could do a poll of what people want to see reprinted.
Sure.
I've been asked that before, and now you can see what people want reprinted. Because I mean, for me, Michael Golden's Micronauts would be the number one vote for me because I missed out on that.
That would be something that I would definitely be talking about for sure.
Okay. Let's see here. How do we get more Scott and less Omar? How does that happen? Ouch. Jerk. You mentioned Art Crumb. Are there any underground cartoonists you'd want to do artist editions of?
There are, but I don't know how well they would sell. Like Rand Holmes, most of his art is in one spot with his family. I love Rand Holmes stuff. I don't know if he's a big enough name to do an artist edition of. I don't know how many copies we could sell. I've wanted to do a Crumb book for years, but Crumb isn't interested yet. And it's funny because he's actually been a fan of some of my books. I know he's a fan of the Mad artist edition that I did. But I don't know. I mean, who else, okay, I'd love to see, maybe not one specific artist, but maybe have some of the Zap guys. So,
like something you did with the DC's War.
Yeah, like Victor Moscoso. That's what a brilliant artist. He would be good. So maybe that would be something, but I don't know. They'd have to be into it. So I mean, I'm not gonna. If Crumb doesn't want to do a book, I'm not gonna do it.
What I always thought would be really cool, and I don't think you could. It's just way too much of a licensing nightmare. But I'm a big sucker for homage covers of like either one of the most popular one that's been spoofed a lot, or rather homaged of, is the Days of Future Past, Uncanny 141, or even Crisis on Infinite Earths number 7, right? Superman holding Supergirl. But I think that would be too much of a licensing nightmare because everybody has spoofed those covers, like IDW, Udon, and Dark Horse. Really hoping to see some Ditko artist editions in the near future.
Ditko, I'm not familiar. Who is this Ditko you speak of?
I think he drew a little bit of Spider-Man and Doctor Strange for a while.
Steve Ditko is sort of my holy grail right now. The one artist that I really, really want to see happen. And, I'll keep you updated. It's certainly would be a dream to do a Steve Ditko book or two.
He's definitely got enough material.
Yeah. And Tyrant. I love Tyrant, but he only did 3 issues. So
it'd be a pain to organize and probably not sell enough, but I'd love to see a Best of American Splendor artist edition. That really would be a niche too. But then I don't know, there was a movie, so people are aware of this.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many different artists, though. I think it's more of a collection than a artist edition.
So, being an editor in chief, by the way, Dom, you had me at Travis Charest. What was your experience working with Travis Charest? Being an editor in chief, I'm sorry, at Wildstorm, what was your experience with?
Travis was one of the most interesting artists to to come out of Wildstorm. Well, and he didn't start at Wildstorm. He started at DC.
Yeah, he was doing covers. I remember he had that art looking like Jim Lee, and then wow.
And I actually introduced Jim to Travis, and Travis. It was funny when he was always really good, but when he started, there came a time where you could literally see his art improving week to week, almost day to day. Scott Williams, Jim Lee's famous inker,
Mm-hmm.
He was in the studio and I was in the studio, and as he was doing stuff, he would do new covers and he would do X-Men Wildcats, and literally we would talk about him in terms of he made another leap. He took another jump, because you could literally see the guy's goddamn work getting better and better and better, ridiculously good. Everybody was just in awe of his work at the studio. He just tremendous talent.
I remember I stepped away from comics for about 6 years or so. I left when Travis went over to start working on Wildcats, and he still had that very Jim Lee look to his art. And when I came back, he had moved on to doing like European comics and graphic novels. And oh my God, I remember looking at that Wildcats X-Men book that has yet to be reprinted outside of a trade paperback. It was the Golden Age, I think. And it was one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen drawn, like ever. I was blown away by how much his style had just evolved. And hey, Dana, how are you? Hi, Dana. Omar and Scott at Ditko. Mr. A would be awesome.
That was actually planned at IDW, but the Ditko estate pulled it back. I think they want to publish it themselves because they own the material.
You could also make a whole book out of Hulk 340 homages. Yes. Have you done a Jim Starlin artist edition?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, Scott has worked with about everybody. How many books do you have under your belt, just artist edition, Scott?
Again? I think about 90.
Wow. And what was the first, like, how did you pitch it? How did that go? You were like, hey, I got a bunch of art.
I remember I had wanted to do books like this for a long time before I got to IDW. And, DC wasn't at the time interested in that kind of format. It had never been done, and nobody knew if it would be successful. So when I got to IDW, Ted Adams, who used to be the owner of IDW and was the president and publisher, he was an incredibly supportive guy. Artist editions would not have happened without him. So what happened was I had an arrangement that if IDW didn't want to do a book that I pitched, I could do it elsewhere. I could do it on my own. I could self-publish it. And so I pitched him the idea of doing artist editions, completely expecting him to say, that's a crazy idea. We're not going to do that. And to my surprise, Ted was all in on it. And so the first one was Dave Stevens, The Rocketeer. And, the rest is history.
Now, that's another one that I would love to see reprinted. I missed out on that one. Oh, The Rocketeer. Oh, Dave Stevens' artwork. It's on another level. Honestly, it would be Rumiko Takahashi and Akira Toriyama. No idea, likely, but hot damn. Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of creators. Dave Stevens' Artist Edition documentary is a great watch.
It is. That was done by my pal Kelvin Mao. Did a great job on it.
90, I only recently purchased Paul Smith's X-Men. I missed a lot. Of course, I would be very poor. But there's always a chance. I mean, they're reprinting a lot of them. I think the John Byrne X-Men, that one was reprinted. Was that, what was it called before Artist Edition? Artifact Edition, I think is what it was called.
Well, I used to do Artifact Editions, which were basically non-complete stories, because Artist Editions were originally supposed to be complete stories. But I now, I've rethought that a bit, and I'm not going to do any more Artifact Editions. I'm just going to call everything Artist Editions now to keep the brand intact.
It's all about that branding. And let's see here. Looking at some of the comments, because I know I've taken up a lot of your time. And the Act 4 reprint Tyrant hardcover, just saying, doesn't have to be an Artist Edition.
I can see that.
So Scott, what is the next step for you? What is what will be the next step for Act 4? You've got some projects coming up. Do you see Skybound working with you as easily as IDW with the projects, kind of like letting you loose and doing your own thing?
Well, it's a different kind of relationship. IDW, I was an employee. Skybound and I have a completely different vibe going, because Act 4 is my company, and I'm putting these books out and they're distributing them. But the nice thing about Skybound, well, first, I know a lot of people there. I've worked with people going back to my Wildstorm DC days. Ben Abernathy is over there, and there are so many others who I've worked with in marketing, Blake and Alex, and then in editorial, Nachi. There are so many people that I know and have faith in, that that helps a lot. And they have a good infrastructure. They fill in the gaps on things that are very important. Getting things through solicitations and things like that. And as it is right now, I'm working with my printers that I've worked with at IDW for years, and so it's a good partnership. My time at IDW was great, but it just sort of it was time to move on.
Well, I know I'm not alone when I say we're hoping and wish you all the luck and success that you have built a complete wonderful community too. A lot of these artists and editors and publishers, they all know you. So I think everybody speaks fondly of you. And anytime I know I brought up your name, they're like, oh yeah, we love Scott. And I think that's great. This says a lot about you and the type of relationships that you have built without burning any bridges. I think it's great. And now you can work with the freedom of, getting DC stuff, getting independent stuff. And then of course, there's always a chance of Marvel stuff as well. So yeah, I'm not alone. See, thank you for all you've done. It's been great. We've been better for it.
It's my pleasure. And, people are just, I've been really lucky because the people I've dealt with over the last, honestly, 30 years. In April, it'll be 30 years since I started at Wildstorm. Everyone's been great. I've made some of my best friends over the years at various places. And, everyone, especially since I started my new company, have been incredibly helpful and nice and generous. And, it's very, it's really cool. And actually, just a little side thing that is so silly, but it's kind of nice, when it's kind of nice to hear people say nice things about me when my wife is like watching or listening. She it's always nice to have, I don't know, to be looked favorably upon. Anyway, I'm rambling, but you know what I mean.
No, I think it says a lot about you and what you have built. So yeah, of course we want to see you successful, and we want to see this brand continue. And really, really excited. I cannot wait to hold the Connoisseur editions physically in my hand, because they sound rather amazing. And if you were the guy behind this wonderful Martini edition, then I think we have nothing to fear. This is the first printing. It went out of print, and then IDW reprinted it when the second one came out. We were worried we were never going to get that second one too. Seriously.
That was a tough book for me, because I kept on second guessing myself, because the first one was designed by Darwin. The second one was designed by Sean Phillips, but it sort of was left up to me to kind of, not be the designer, but be the showrunner of it in a way. And it was tough, because Darwin and I were very close, and to be responsible to that, I kept on thinking, and I still do, how much better it would be if Darwin did it. I'm happy with the way it came out. People like it. The most important critic is Darwin's wife. She loved it. But it's the kind of thing that, always in the back of my head, I think, oh man, Darwin would have done it so much better. But, it is what it is. And so
I think it's a beautiful book, and I'm so glad that we ended up getting the rest of the stories. And yeah, we got the extra story in there it was Brubaker and Sean Phillips, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was a great one. And actually what's really cool is I pitched it to Abby Westlake, Donald Westlake's wife, about doing a new story. And, Ed and Sean had approached me about doing it. And she was a bit nervous. She said, well, I would need to, see it. And so they basically did the story not knowing if it would get into the book.
Oh.
And then he, Abby saw the script, but she still was a little bit nervous. And when the story was done, because this would be the only time that a Parker story would have been created by someone, a new Parker story that was created by someone other than Westlake. And Westlake had never allowed even the name of Parker to be used before Darwin did these graphic novels. If you look at the old movies until Westlake died, they were never called Parker. The character's name was always something else, because he cared about Parker so much. But she read the story and she loved it. She was very touched by it, and she allowed us to put it in.
Oh, that's wonderful. So they had no idea it was gonna be in the final product. That's when they were working on it. Both of the Parker box editions are gorgeous. Agreed. And now we're gonna get a Darwin Cook Spirit Connoisseur edition,
which, by the way, is designed by Sean Phillips.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. And what about Ragnarok? Before you leave, is that designed by Walter?
No, that'll be designed by my good friend Serban Crescescu, who sorry, I just got some interesting news that anyway.
I hope it's good. I hope it's good.
It's not about me, but anyway. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Could you remind me of what your last question was? I apologize.
No, it's okay. I was looking at the chat. We were talking about the box sets of the Connoisseur editions, and I was wondering if Walter Simonson was going to design the Ragnarok Connoisseur.
No, that'll be by Serban Crescescu, who He designed the Ragnarok collections at IDW. He also he's designed several artist editions. He designed the Al Williamson Star Wars book. He designed the 2 Jack Kirby Fantastic Four books. A tremendous designer.
And let's see. Oh, this is a good question. Okay, we can end it on this one because this is a legit good question. Because I was wondering about this. Apologies if this has ever been addressed, but that was my first artist edition. But did the Don Rosa Life and Times Volume 2 ever release? I feel like I saw solicit in 2020. Maybe an unfortunate project lost to the pandemic.
It's lost to Disney. Disney. There's some material in there that Disney does not want reprinted, so I don't think that's ever going to happen.
It's yeah, it's the same story with the Fantagraphics version of that book, and Don has made a statement about that. And
yeah. I'm on great terms with Don.
Oh, I love that guy. I love that guy.
He's fantastic.
But I just want to thank you for being here, Scott, and talking about these wonderful projects you've got coming up. And you are always welcome back, my friend, especially if you've got, I know that we talked about doing a conversation with Jeffrey Scott Campbell and yourself to talk about the upcoming artist edition and any other projects and whatever you need. We are here. So thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Omar. You are really the best. You are just such a nice guy. Your wife is so sweet. Just always a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, so much for taking the time to watch. And we all, I think I speak for everybody that's watching right now. We cannot wait until your books come out. And, oh, man, I'm excited. I'm excited for you. But that's it, everybody. If you're watching later, go back to the beginning and go and check out what Act 4 is coming out with through Skybound and, of course, Image Comics. But that is it for us.